Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lodgecast. Woo! I'm joined by, once again, my bestest boy, the nicest man in all of Warhammer, Andy, Mr.
Hello.
Remembrancer.
Hello.
We're guiding through another episode today, and this one is on I think it's the 5th book in the Horus Heresy series, and it is Fulgrim. I think it's one of the few ones that actually is just straight up named after a Primarch.
Yeah, there's this in Korax. Is there any other? And there's Vulcan Lives, but that doesn't count because it's 2 words.
That's
But
more
yeah,
of a
one of the
chant,
few.
really.
And the Korax is an anthology, so it really doesn't count anyway. So
no, but this one is as following from the previous episodes that we've done. This one is a little bit of it jumps around in timelines, but we do end up once again in the Horus Heresy, and we're basically gonna go straight on into it because again, I think great book by Graham McNeil. A lot happens in this one. We are following the Emperor's Children, which is the 3rd Legion. We've seen a few characters from them over the previous episodes, like Saul Tarbit's another, Lucius and Eidolon, a few characters like that. But we're going to continue on. So we're going to open up with basically we are slap bang right at the end of the Great Crusade. This is 200 years in, all that good stuff. The Emperor, conquering the galaxy to reunite mankind. And the book opens with Miss Prodigy. Is it blue-haired, isn't it? She's like a blue-haired seductress type character. Yeah. Miss Bekwa Kinska, who's one. I guess I don't know if she is a remembrancer or she's part of the remembrancer order.
Well, she's like a sculptor, isn't she? She's
she's the organ, like the player. There's a Serana who's also that as well.
Because the remembrancers, it's like there are some people who are photographers, others who are quote iterators, who are good orators, and then there's other people. They have a very wide array of different skills. Hence why I use that as my name for the channel. I remember things, and I use visual and audio, so that's me. And I kind of took inspiration from this book and some of the other books in the early Horus Heresy series.
Well, luckily this book opens up with a bit of a bang because Bekwa Kinska, she's arguing on stage in this grand theater in the Emperor's Children flagship. And I would mention how like the fleet of the 3rd Legion is pretty decadent, not quite like as functional as other legions. And it's unlike many other Primarchs who didn't like remembrances. Fulgrim loves them because any opportunity to have his legion, immortalized. I think there's another book which mentions how Fulgrim is one of the few people who would like happily talk to remembrances like all the time, and he wouldn't shut up, which is
he's all like, "Hey, paint me on my good side, like pay me one like one of your French girls." Like, I was like, "Fulgrim, stop." He's like, "Yeah, go
please,
on, take another photo."
But Bekwa she's a prodigy. She's been playing in, to many nobles and Astartes and even Fulgrim many times. She's just scrapping with a member of the crowd because someone was talking, I think, during the performance. It's not going well. And then Mr. Fulgrim himself walks in, the Palatine Phoenix, beautiful, beautiful Fulgrim with his like silver hair, purple and gold armor. And he just asks her kindly, like, would you play for me? Very, very innocently. And she's like, well, I guess if you ask, but tuck the hair behind, the ear, sort of basically lets everyone know in the beginning of this book, Fulgrim is the dude. He is beloved. And having said that, when the Emperor's Children, we've mentioned a little bit briefly in previous episodes, but they're quite known for overarching like pursuit of perfection in all things. They strive to be beautiful warriors, amazing combatants, orators. They know history, arts, culture, everything, and they bear the Emperor's Aquila. Which actually, to be fair, Andy, do you remember the story of how they're at this time, not like in 40k where it's like on every chapter? How do they earn like the Emperor's Aquila that's emblazoned on their chest?
From what I remember, there was a big battle involving the Emperor, and a lot of the 3rd Legion at the time gave their lives to secure victory and save the Emperor's life. And so as a gesture of goodwill, and it's worth saying that the seed that was planted for their kind of obsession with perfection was they had very few numbers. They were affected by a blight that was killing them off. And so they were like, oh, well, in order to keep up with the other legions, we have to be 10 times as good as any other legionary because there's 10 times less of us. but the Emperor's children, they save the Emperor, and he's like, you're all drawn from the aristocrats of Terra. You're basically a noble legion by the virtue of the word. I will give you my symbol because you are my children, my Emperor's children. And they're very proud of that, and they're very happy with that. And because of their numbers as well, they also were often equerries, emissaries, people who would be like the vanguard for like messages directly from the Emperor, because it's like, oh, we're not going to put 200, 300 of you in a battle. We'll give you other tasks to do, and you can look regal and posh. And they're like, yeah, that's fine.
More than just soldiers, they were. And at this point, the book is opening where, like, almost like a recreation of the Throne on Terra. Like, there's these beautiful golden doors where the Legion essentially all hold council, and they discuss battle plans for this next world they're going to fight on, which is called Laeron, which will be very infamous in the Legion's history. Fulgrim, at this point, beautiful Fulgrim, declares that he's been told like it will take years to pacify this Xenos world, and he says, "Nuh-uh, we're going to do it in a month." So, because the Emperor's children don't do anything half-ass; they full-ass, as they say. Much of this book, though, will not for this episode, but as in much of the book does follow from the perspective of Captain Solomon Demeter, who's, again, he is an Emperor's children, so he's prideful, but he is quite a bit more level-headed, more of the noble figure rather than what the obsessive perfectionist is for many of the other members of the Legion. And upon Laeron, they sort of see from the little spy glasses that it's a very bizarre world. They find islands made of like coral structures. They call them like atolls, which is kind of like anthills in some sense, or like termite mounds. And they find this Xenos called the Lair. Andy, could you briefly describe what the Lair Xenos perhaps looks like for the viewers?
So the Lair are a strange one because it's worth remembering that I believe Lair is an ocean world, hence all the coral and a big heavy emphasis with like water. And the Lairen are these multi-limbed serpentine creatures, and they're not just that. As soon as the Emperor's children see them, there's like, something's up with these guys. These are a bit, because when they start killing them and they're like dissecting them, they go, hang on a minute, they've been messing with each other. What's this? That's not a natural organ. What's going on? So they're kind of bug-eyed, serpentine-tailed, scaly creatures with limbs. There's also speculation that in modern 40k, the Slith are the descendants of the Lairen, which are also, again, a Xenos reptilian species with 4 arms and like a big tail. And yeah, with their involvement with the Lair, they're going, oh, why is these guys are being a bit stubborn? Oh, it's because they've been genetically modifying each other. How have they done this? And also, why is everything painted pink? And what's all these weird structures around? There's something going on here.
Amazing all the time.
Why are they so heavily perfumed? What's going on?
Yeah, something's not quite right with the Lair. Clearly weren't always like that, but we will discover later though what did happen to them, or is implied what happened to them. But essentially the Third Legion, they rocket down towards the surface. Again, this is not like 40k. These are Legion strength, so these are hundreds of thousands of warriors, and the fighting is pretty brutal. We see lots of scenes with like First Captain Julius Caesarion and Solomon Demeter, like they're fighting through like coral areas, and the Lair like firing like green energy weapons. The Legion losses is pretty bad for a lot of this, which would be embarrassing for many a Legion. But with the Emperor's children, they don't forget. They don't remember their losses, do they? They kind of, we don't perceive losses. Many bodies are taken of the Xenos to back to their flagships for study / again, to understand how to beat an enemy, you must learn about him. This is where, in the Apothecarian, Mr. Fulgrim himself strides through, and he meets with his chief apothecary, Fabius Bile. Andy, we've mentioned him only a few times in previous episodes, but who is Fabius Bile, and how would you describe him?
Probably the easiest correlation would be he's Dr. Frankenstein in space. He's this long-haired, old veteran of the days when the Third Legion were very badly afflicted by, I think is it called the Blight?
Yep.
There's a sickness that's killing them off, and Fabius has been studying it for decades, going, what's going on? Why are we like this? What's wrong with us? And this guy is mad scientist to the nth degree. The man literally had mice as a child, which he would tamper with so they could have mock duels, and he used to cry when they accidentally killed one another. Like he's crazy as a box of frogs, and he is fascinated with anything to do with scientific discovery, biological and genetic mutations. So when he gets his hands on the lair, he's going, "Oh, this is fascinating. Look what's going on with the neck glands and their voices, and oh, well, they have these extra appendages. Oh, let's trace back to where it started." Like a kid in a candy store, when he sees the lair, he is absolutely chuffed that he gets to cut them open and see what makes them tick. That's the kind of guy Fabius is.
He's not quite beautiful like the rest of the Emperor's Children, which would be
No,
quite funny. No,
ghoulish almost.
they describe him as quite ugly. But Fabius explains to Fulgrim how the Leia are like gene altering themselves and like they're specializing themselves in the environment, and he expresses an interest in doing the same for the Legion. And again, this is like generally like there's no people aren't aware of it at the time, but this is pure heresy. Like Fulgrim is initially like he's gonna slap like Fabius's head off, but Fabius kind of plays on Fulgrim's insecurities a bit here, because this is not quite early Great Crusade Fulgrim. This is Fulgrim who is kind of been left unwatched for many years, and they've kind of again their obsession with perfection has made them a bit desperate over many decades, and so they kind of gotten, he needs a talking to, but it hasn't happened yet. And he makes Fulgrim be like, what if you fail the Emperor? And then Fulgrim was like, oh god, like the worst thing ever, that's worse than death, is to fail the Emperor. What if your Legion could be stronger and you said no? So Fulgrim reluctantly is like, keep doing your stuff, but don't announce it. Yeah. Fulgrim at this point, then again, the battle below on Laeron is raging, and Fulgrim calls a meeting of the Brotherhood of the Phoenix, which, like our name, it is basically one of their lodges. But it is Third Legion style, because the Third Legion, having a group which could meet without rank or talk without structure, is not something they do at all. So
what do you mean there isn't a hierarchy? No, I earned my rank. I'm gonna show
even
it off.
Even Fulgrim's in it, which is hilarious. He's the only Primarch actually in the lodges. It's kind of again, it's in this grand decadent hall. It's basically a peacock contest between various members. Solomon, Marius Varian, I can't remember how to say his name. Varosian, that's it. He's important later to the Legion. First Captain Julius Caesarion, who I assume at this time is probably newly first captain, because other characters have not been aware. Like the other first captains may have died in the previous role, unfortunately. But
and it is also worth mentioning the Emperor's Children have the weird convention of having a Lord Commander with Eidolon, who's not a captain. He's technically a higher rank than a captain, but it's like, what do you? He's like, he's got his own little, because of course the pompous, annoying character that no one likes is like, I'm better than a captain, I need to have my own title. And so yeah, the Emperor's Children also have, I think, a couple of Lord Commanders, but he's the most prominent one.
We actually find there's two members who sit either side of Fulgrim who are like the highest in the Legion, which is Vespasian and Eidolon, and they are very much strong rivals against each other. They did not like each other at all. Obviously, people from previous episode, or if you haven't watched them, do go check them out. But people may remember Eidolon from Horus Rising, who, well, enough said, go check out that episode if you wish to know more about what he did. But Fulgrim welcomes new members to the Brotherhood. It is Lucius and Tarvitz, who again we remember from previous opening trilogy of the Horus Heresy. And depending on the temperament of the various captains who are at this meeting, they are either impressed by one, they're never impressed by both of them. So like if someone's a bit more of an asshole, they look more towards Lucius, and then again, all of them think again, they call Tarvitz the Mr. Line Officer, but He's a stalwart, noble fellow. So they don't. Some people like him more. And Eidolon, Lucius, and Tarvitz, they are basically heading to murder. So the beginning of the Horus Rising series, they are basically preparing to leave, and we all know exactly what goes on there. So again, check that out if you want to see that. And then we switch again scenes to where basically the temple fight, like their fighting is getting they're conquering atolls, and they're taking like coral islands, and they're basically pushing towards the like central capital. And it's pretty brutal. Like many Emperor's children, for all their perfection, they are being killed in droves, but so is the Leia. And Fulgrim is getting annoyed because there's like the final temple outside area fight, and like all the it's perfection should mean that all the forces arrive on time together. They do not, because things
what do
happen.
you mean they're resisting? That's illegal, said Fulgrim.
Fulgrim is being a bit petulant because he's again like, failure is weakness. So he is embarrassed in some way. We should always be better for the Emperor, be better for humanity. And they're one of the Phoenix Guard, who are like their elite Terminators, one of their guys gets shot and he like grabs the banner before it touches the ground, and they basically do like a last sort of fight where they clean up all the guards outside the temple, and then they eventually go inside the temple. And then it gets funky because the shadows on the walls start dancing. They see colors they have not seen before. They hear music that makes them feel ill, but also really good. Eventually, they get into this open like area inside. There's no more guards. They only see a writhing mass of like Leia intertwining, doing funny stuff to each other in this. And then there's something in the center of the room. And Andy, what do they see when Fulgrim appears at the center of the room?
I believe he sees a peculiar looking sword, a sword that looks not like it's got that kind of alien quality where it's so kind of there is like some official artwork where it's like it's got a curved edge, it's jutting around, it's got weird symbols on it. And Fulgrim takes one look at that and he's like, I'm having that looks weird. But one thing that's worth mentioning as well is, like we mentioned, Solomon Demeter. He's not in the fighting of the temple. Everything that happens henceforth, he's unaffected by. But the closer your proximity to like this epicenter of the temple where the blade is kind of enshrined, sometimes, like Indiana Jones taught us, you shouldn't take the mystical artifact out of the temple full of traps or enemies because there's dire consequences.
And what's interesting on the sword as well is like there's a little amethyst in the pommel, and Fulgrim does remark that it's not the most beautiful sword he's ever seen, but he's entranced by it, and he walks up like just uninterrupted, like no one stops him. He goes up and he grabs the Leia blade and he takes a swing. If he swings it, and it does feel really, like it's meant to be in his hands. And then he orders his men to kill all the Leia basically doing it around him.
Kill the filthy Xenos, said Fulgrim.
Probably quite thankfully. Next, Leia has been cleansed and made compliant. We next cut scenes to where we see the next grouping who will be in this book, although not as much, but this is the Iron Hands, my favorite chapter. Well, I mean, I like them later on in the Horus Heresy series, but we cut to Ferrus Manus and the Iron Hands. They've been having some troubles with some Xenos human things again. And there's a scene where Ferrus is in this mass hall and all the Iron Hands are assembled, their banners flying and everything. And he says to them, guess what, brothers? We're going to be fighting alongside the Emperor's children. And obviously, they love each other. So, Andy, how is the relationship between Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus and their legions?
Well, it's often said that like some Primarchs have stronger relationships with others, and Horus, for example, is well known as like this charismatic guy who everyone's friends with. But as good of a friend as Horus was to Fulgrim, Ferrus Manus is his bestie. Like these two they couldn't be more dissimilar. You've got this beautiful Phoenician who's got the long flowing hair, very graceful, very like demure, and then you've got this guy known as the Gorgon because he's so ugly and aggressive looking and like calloused that people are like, oh, he's got a face only an emperor could love. And you know, I think Ferris is the only one who like laughs when like Fulgrim calls him the Gorgon, because it's like an affectionate thing. And both of these guys are master craftsmen, so they have a shared love of creating things, to the point where they had a competition where Fulgrim created an immense hammer, a thunder hammer, a war hammer, if you will. And Ferris made a flaming sword called Fireblade, because of course, and Forgebreaker is the one that Fulgrim makes. And when both of them like trade weapons and they start analyzing and going like, who's the better craftsman, both of them like, no, yours is better, no, you, no, yours, no, you. And so as like a compromise, they say, okay, it's a draw, we'll call it a draw, but I get to keep the weapon you made as like a sign of our eternal bond of brotherhood and friendship and camaraderie. And no legions get along better than the Iron Hands and the Emperor's Children, because even though the Emperor's Children are these foppish peacocks, and the Iron Hands are these stoic, no nonsense, we get things done and we don't show off. It's that opposites attract thing where they're like, oh, we can see the virtue in each other's legions and character and virtues, and so that makes us and both have like, less so with the Iron Hands, they are seeking perfection, but for them it's more like
expunge
how would you just
weakness.
yeah, it's like we diminish the weakness to make the strengths better. Whereas the Emperor's Children, there's no such thing. No, there's no weaknesses. No, there's no such thing. We just get better and better and better, and we ignore the weaknesses. And so yeah, they get along very well. And every time that they go on joint campaigns, it's as much of a celebration as it is a campaign, because they work so well together.
Yeah, massively strong bond between particularly the Primarchs and again the Legions. I will say at this point there is a subplot throughout the book Fulgrim here where we follow some perspective of the Remembrancers, who it does lead up to various things throughout the book, but most importantly, when Fulgrim calls a lot of them to where the temple previously was on Leia and asks them to basically create pieces of art and inspiration, particularly Bekwa Kinska, create a grand piece to sell it, and they're all bathing in the wrongness of the temple here. And that will come up later. And again, we can, as Andy was saying before, there's something is going on in terms of like, there's a clear divide between those who were in the temple and those who were not. So like I said, Solomon not, but Marius was in it.
Marius, I don't think Vespasian and Demeter, I don't think were anywhere near the temple, because they're the ones who like, and again, Vespasian and Eidolon, both Lord Commanders, absolute opposites. Like Eidolon's this foppish dick, and then Vespasian is this like,
rock
very
solid.
like just like reliable and more humble. And so it kind of reflects as well like the effect of the lair preys on the more egotistical members of the Legion.
And I think first captain Julius was also there, but something is going, and also Fulgrim, but something is something has not been right. And we see now where Ferris and his first captain, the legions are now meeting on Fulgrim's flagship. First captain Gabriel Santar of the Iron Hands walks with Ferris, and at this point, they needed the Emperor's Children to basically act as their hammer and anvil, because they've been chasing this colony of like human Xenos ships called themselves the Diasporax, who they're in like ancient old Terran ships, who like, from the first time, many thousands of years ago. But the humans in there have shacked up with aliens and they live in harmony. And this is not.
Yeah. You're telling me they're getting along with aliens and they're using Dark Age of technology stuff to do it? Just heresy. Kill them all.
Yeah, Imperium does not tolerate that at all. And
no.
There has been like we said before, like sometimes there is like friendly competition between the legions, but especially between like when Gabriel Santar gets like he catches on to like something first before Julius, and Fulgrim is like, we should have been better than him. A little bit of friendly banter, but they are essentially working together and they will attack this fleet eventually because they refuse Imperial compliance. Fulgrim at this point, invites his, best friend Ferris, come back to my room. We're gonna have a chat, have some wine.
Play some Call of Duty. It'll be
Yeah,
awesome. Come
they're
on.
having some banter. Getting along. Ferris makes offhand comments like Fulgrim has some artwork in his room. He's like, oh, that's nothing. And then Ferris is like, yeah, it looks pretty shite. Yeah, I thought, you know what I mean? Yeah, because Ferris doesn't have the eye for this at all. Fulgrim was hurt by this, but he then, for the first time, he hears a voice in his head, and it's like, Ferris is jealous of you. And he's like, he just thinks it's really like, where did that come from? He thinks it's his own subconscious, but he was very like perplexed, as in like, where was like, that was really weird. He's never thought
He's
like
just
that
jealous.
around
Who
Ferris.
said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very out character for him. We then see some more of Fabius doing some sus shit in the Apothecarian. Mr. Eidolon's been mocking him a little bit about that. There's new drugs, literally drugs being spread throughout the legions, obviously made from parts of the layer, because of the layer we used to enhance themselves that way. And some of them, like Solomon and Vespasian, are not going to do it. They're like, this isn't the way. But then other ones are like, but it came from Fulgrim's orders. What are you going to do?
Lord Commander Vespasian literally going, just say no. Just say no, kids. Fight like legionaries. You don't need performance-enhancing drugs in the Legion.
Yeah, he's a bit of
fight like we normally do.
It's getting funky though. It's like, as you can tell, like the Legion is getting worse as like the book goes on. The battle against the Diasporax begins. The Iron Hands have raced on ahead first, and usually this would be like a bit of funny band, like, but this makes Fulgrim angry. So he makes a daring attack when he arrives. They make he in his personal Thunderhawk. They make like a boarding action, and they go to the enemy's main vessel. He almost gets shot down, ironically, but Ferrus Manus saves him. Fulgrim, Mr. Phoenix himself, bum rushes through the ship. Again, he's a Primarch. You can't really like, and he's fighting with the layer sword, and he's feeling amazing doing it. Like it feels really, like it feels better than normal sword fighting. And he reaches the command deck only to find Mr. Solomon, Captain Solomon Demeter has already reached it first. And
it's just that that image of Ralph from The Simpsons just waving, just him on the command bridge, like, hello. It's like, what are you doing here? This is my moment.
Yeah, Fulgrim was like, this is my big moment. And then his mind just starts deteriorating. Like that voice that came out before just starts saying vile things about, Solomon hates you. He upshowed you, you're weak. And then this poor Xenos commander who's in the command throne, he just asks, like, why couldn't you leave us alone? And then obviously it's like good thing of, why doesn't the Imperium just leave people alone? It doesn't. It kills and it dominates.
That's heresy. Can't have that.
True. Fulgrim is not, I don't know. He's getting pretty crazy. I mean, Andy, how would you describe his mental state, Andy?
Manic, I would say. Because again, it's that whole thing of like, yes, occasionally the Iron Hands and the Emperor's Children would kind of try to show each other up as a bit of competition, but the fact that he's one going, oh, Ferris had to save my life, oh, that makes me look weak, and then also one of my junior officers has actually beaten me to the punch, and now I look like more of an idiot, and now Ferris is going to think I'm stupid, and all my men are going to say I'm not a proper Primarch, and it's just like all the doubts just start flooding in because he keeps seeing these, and to be fair as well, he's a bit distracted because of the Lair Blades whispering and his obsession with it, and so he's also, as much as it's empower him to be like this dance of death as he goes through the ship, there's also an element of like he's not thinking clearly, his strategies aren't 100% because his ego is getting in the way of his actual like effectiveness. And like
he's not himself, is he?
He's not himself.
He should be Fulgrim, the inspiring, kind man, but he's kind of, he's degenerating, and it's getting faster as the book goes. And as the kids say, he's having a mental breakdown. He almost strikes down Solomon, but he and like they can all, even all the legionaries are like, what is going on? But so the legions kind of at this point, they depart on awkward terms. Like Fulgrim doesn't even say goodbye to Ferris, which is really weird. He does think he thinks Ferris upstaged him. he just sits in his like private quarters, Fulgrim, and he's playing music recordings from the temple. So it's obviously getting, it's getting worse, which is not enjoyable. And then many months continue on for this, and the Legion moves on to basically its next campaign, and they sit now above this like truly, truly gorgeous world, and it's known to be what is a maiden world to the Eldar, which is essentially luxury worlds they had, like they literally like garden, like a Narnia's basically. They have like luxurious worlds like that are like the best of what the Eldar could produce. There's only a few of them left in the galaxy, especially at the 41st millennium. And the Brotherhood of the Phoenix is called again to meet up. Parts of the Legion are reunited. Here we see Eidolon, Lucius, and Tarvitz again, but this is, if people remember in the timeline, this is post attack on World of Murder with Horus and Sanguinius and obviously Eidolon and members of their Legion. Vespasian is loving it because he just hints to like, I heard it didn't go so hot, huh? And Eidolon is like straight up just lying to everyone's face. Solomon was unconvinced, so he went to go ask Tarvitz and Lucius, the truth after. Lucius, again, we've just seen in previous episodes, he like covers for Eidolon. He's a bit of a shit. Every time he's like, like that's your senior commander. He's like, and then Solomon's like, I'm your senior commander.
You suck
shut up.
Yeah. Do you remember what Tor Gadden said? Shush, shush. No. He wasn't humbled by the guy from the Lunar Wolves. No.
Yeah, he's
shut up.
Mr. Solomon is reassuring Tarvitz, like, you can tell me, it's fine, man. And he's like, he literally says, quote, we both know Eidolon is a blowhard, So and then Lucius like tries to, like a little chihuahua, put him in his place, and then Solomon barks him down, being like, maybe you're not the great man I thought you were, huh? He's like,
what was that? 10th captain? Oh, knife through the heart.
Yeah. Lucius, he's not the big guy yet. The Legion it's above this world. The fleets and the various holds, many parts of it, like, it's getting weird now. The music of the temple has been played over the fleets. Strange art from the Remembrances has been making its way around ships, and people having strange meetings, and something has clearly gone wrong. Funny part next is when Eidolon's returned after his supposedly embarrassing failure. Fabius Bile, if remember Apothecary from before, he just straight up jumps Eidolon. and we've seen it in previous episodes. But Andy, what does Fabius do to Eidolon / give to him?
So kind of befitting for a man who likes to shout to the heavens just how great he is. Fabius, after investigating the Laren, figures out a way to implant Eidolon's vocal cords with it's basically like an upgrade, an improvement. So if you're familiar with the Mortal Kombat character Sindel, I believe it is, who can just scream in someone's face and their head explodes, that's basically what Eidolon is given by Fabius. But it's more of a case of for Fabius, it's an experiment. I don't want this kind of thing. This isn't my style. I don't know if we can put this for the whole Legion, but let's see if it works. And because Eidolon is such a quote blowhard, no one's really gonna like miss him if he's gone. He's an easy target. But thankfully, Eidolon does quite enjoy this newfound ability to be able to shriek people's faces off, as is seen in previous books in the Horus Heresy, where he shouts to death the war singer, and even when Tarvitz is like, what the hell was that? But again, it's still somewhat hush hush. He's a Lord Commander, so no one's going to ask questions. And even then, when he does use his power in the previous books, there's only really Saul Tarvitz to witness it, and who knows what else Fabius is getting up to with the other legionaries at this point.
It still makes me laugh how they describe it, like his throat like inflates like a blowfish, and it then comes out with a massive scream. Hilarious. Fabius is getting bold now. Much to the Legion's protest, Fulgrim and his retinue do land on the Maiden World, and there's an interesting part here where like Fulgrim does make a comment of like, because they're all like, basically they're landing in this world because a group of Eldar have asked for a meeting, and again, they're Xenos, so lots of all the Emperor's children, Eidolon, even Solomon and Tarvitz, they all just say, what do you do? What do you mean we fight aliens? And then Fulgrim does make a very, like, again, you can see that the good man is still in there. He says something about, like, every time in a man's life, at one point in his youth, he's made a mistake he like haunts him forever, and I don't want to do that again. Well, I've done it too much in my life. So the good man is still within there. Like, he's not all just perpetual annoying Primarch. But so he goes to this meeting. It's Farseer Eldrad Ulthwé, who we will see throughout the Horus Heresy, but there's not as much Xenos interference in many of these books. But
because to be fair, Eldrad at this point has already approached Ferrus Manus years prior to try and avert disaster, and Ferrus said, "Oh, jog on." Like, that was his response. Like, "Ooh, oosh,
did not go well.
Okay, try the other one. Try his mate."
That'll be. I think that's an anthology book later. Like, there's a few books that like are set earlier in the timeline, but come out much later in the Horus Heresy. But with Eldrad, like, they have their initial meeting. It's kind of going well. Like, both groups have like a honor guard, and they are trading some barbs, but Fulgrim is not intimidated. And until Eldrad says something about upcoming events that it shifts the tone. Andy, do you remember what Eldrad told Fulgrim was going to happen that sent him into a tizzy?
Well, this is a bit of a running theme in the Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy has a theme of a guy called Horus is kind of the catalyst where everything goes wrong. But every time someone who's loyal, even if only at the time, to the Imperium and the Emperor, hears about the heresy that Horus is about to undo, they get very cross, because at this point, Horus is the chosen son of the Emperor. Everyone loves, like, every single Primarch, if not outright loves him, respects him. And it was like with the Eisenstein, like, Dawn flies into a rage when it's insinuated that that Horus might be a bit of a wrong'un, and when Eldrad goes, "Oh, so by the way, just letting you know, massive civil war is about to happen between humans and humans, and your brother, your second bestie next to Ferrus Manus, the guy who respects you when everyone else calls you a foppish peacock, the guy who's, beloved by the Imperium entire and is the War Master of the Imperium, he's going to betray you, and everything's going to go wrong, and everything you cherish and love is going to burn." Oh, Fulgrim is not happy with that idea. How dare you? Like, if I came up to you and I was like, your brother is going to
sleep with
your
wife.
family and attack your family, and then hurt everyone you love and kill all your friends, I'm sure you'd be like, excuse me, what? No, my brother's cool, actually. I'd never do that. How dare you, alien?
He does not. It's really funny because Eldrad is like, don't get. You promise you won't get mad. It's like, okay,
chill. Yeah,
but,
chill. And then
crazy sentences though, and Fulgrim becomes enraged. They notice on his hip this silver amethyst starts glowing, and the Eldar see the layer blade, and they realize, like, oh no, chaos got to one of the anathema's sons. And
it's like, guys, we didn't check the weapons. We didn't check the weird looking weapon on his hip. Oh, guys, we should have screened for this. We should have checked.
Yeah, the security was terrible. Fulgrim, again, like, it was implied, like, it's not necessarily only his rage. The blade may have been aiding. Fulgrim whips out the layer blade, and the groups will start attacking each other. Some of them, like, they do go, because they are Emperor's children, they are pretty good. They go toe to toe with a lot of the Eldar, and eventually Fulgrim will fight an avatar of Cain. It's pretty epic duel between those two, and Fulgrim eventually, like, he is cutting and, like, they're slashing. They're pretty evenly matched until I think he just squeezes its head off, like, with his hands. Like, he just pops it off. And he's noticing, like, when this happens, like, whatever, like, there's like an essence of, like, a soul escaping, and then the blade seems to, like, love it and eat it. And Fulgrim again feels better than he's ever felt before because obviously the blade is doing something to him.
He's killing and killing and killing, and he's like, "I've got an erection!" Like Fulgrim,
literally.
no,
but,
no.
It's not over yet though, because a part of it, like they do, to be fair, in a tizzy and in his anger, he does blow up the entire Maiden world, which the Eldar will never forgive him for that. But he is still put off by the words about Horus, and he's not fully gone yet. So again, he just basically turns the Legion around. He's like, I need to go speak to Horus, because something clearly is like they're mentioning something about like Davin and whatever. What is this thing? So he goes to Horus to go seek the truth. And again, the music is playing, the artwork is weird. He realizes at this point the voice that is speaking to him, he's pretty sure now it's not in his own head. He's very not sure, but again, he doesn't want to tell anybody because then he looks like a weakling, or he thinks he's like, oh, my awakening psychic powers, I don't know what's going on. He eventually goes to meet with Mr. Horus Lupercal, who Mr. Horus, he is everyone's favorite guy because he's so charming, and he's like, whoa, Fulgrim, chill, man.
Slow down, brother.
Yeah.
I'll take care of it. Don't mind me. It's me, Horus.
Come on, let's just go
like
smoke a
this in the
doobie
book.
and go back to mine. Yeah,
Let's get a sunny night and talk this over like adults. Come on,
Mojito, please. So Horus, alongside Erebus, who we've seen in previous episodes. We don't like Erebus.
Here, meet my most trusted advisor.
Yeah, it's me, Erebus.
Like, nothing can go wrong here.
He's again in Warhammer. The rule is if they are bald, they are evil for some reason. Other than Fulgrim yet. Maybe he shows his head later. Who knows? But eventually, they start to speak to Horus for like days on end. They speak about how the Emperor's been lying to you. He's not the perfect being that you're trying to emulate. He is standing in the way. He's been lying about this thing called chaos. Like he's been keeping powers to himself. He's gonna eventually kill you off and me and other Primarchs until eventually he turns himself to be, into basically a god, and he's only worshipped, and that's his whole plan.
You see, Fulgrim, the Chaos is actually absolutely delightful. I've been on Chaos for 5 weeks. It's brilliant. There's not a single side effect. You should try some Chaos too. It's fantastic. Oh, don't listen to Dad. He doesn't know any better. Oh, locking Chaos away in the drinks cabinet where we can't reach. That's ridiculous, said Horus.
It's not quite Ozempic or anything like that, but it is. It is. And eventually, like, Fulgrim is just being like, the blade is not helping to, and Fulgrim is just like, he's going nuts. He's like crying by the end of it, and he's like, at some point, he's like, I'm gonna have to go kill Horus. Then the blade stops him again, and then Horus is like cupping his head as he's crying. He's being like, I need you, and then Fulgrim is like, okay, I'll help. Okay.
So the alien wasn't lying, and I blew up his planet. Whoops. Oh well, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
little oopsie, as they say. Fulgrim will then go on to try and recruit, because obviously, if they're going to fight the Emperor, who else to fight the Emperor than with your best mate? So he goes to recruit Ferrus Manus. Andy, how did that meeting go between the two of them?
Not well. I'm sure in one of the passages of one of the books, it's like, if we get Ferrus to join the traitor cause, we are winning the war, because he is like very good legion, lots of men, absolute taskmaster. He's going to get the job done. So Fulgrim goes to meet with Ferrus, goes to his Anvalarium, his like inner chamber of his ship. And it's like, oh, hey, Fulgrim, how are you, buddy? Well, funny thing, had a chat with Horus, our best buddy Horus. He's well, long story short, I think we should kill Dad. And the moment that Fulgrim brings up the idea that, we should betray the Imperium and the Emperor, the Primarch Ferrus Manus, renowned for his temper, snaps, and just there's this piece of artwork where it's the two of them fist fighting, and Fulgrim's armed with they basically have the two weapons that they forged. I believe Fireblade is broken in half, but Fulgrim takes up Forgebreaker during the brawl and smacks Ferrus in the head. The the Phoenix Guard completely catch off guard the honor guard of Ferrus Manus, including Gabriel Santar,
The
and
Morlocks, is
butcher
it?
them.
Yeah.
The Morlocks, other than Gabriel, they're all slaughtered, and I think they leave him alive to be like, hey, suffer, look at all your dead friends. My dad's gonna kill your dad, and look at us, we're Emperor's children. And basically the Emperor's children like completely catch the Iron Hands off guard, and not even the tempestuous, volatile temper of the Gorgon is enough to prevent the death of his like most trusted men and the injuring of his first captain. And it does not go well for either one, really.
It's
in the grand scheme
pretty
of things.
It's pretty sad because again, like they are the bestest of friends from all the Primarchs, and like they both are on the edge of tears about it. And it's Ferrus is like, he's so reluctant, but like he literally said like, I'm so sorry, I have to kill you now, because the idea of betraying everything they stand for is worse than, you know, following him into damnation. And you know, he can't, again, it's like, it's pretty, unfortunately we won't be able to do it justice, but in the book it is very tragic and it feels gut-wrenching. And he does, Fulgrim does spare Ferrus, because even though the voice in his head is like screaming to kill him, he's like, I can't kill him. I can't kill him. This is where, at this same time as well, the Emperor's Children Legion is being split into different groups, where, as we've seen in Galaxy in Flames, Eidolon takes many to Isfahan 3, and many of them die in the betrayal. There's a few added scenes where we see Mr. Honorable, you know, Solomon Demeter, who we see him in his last fight as him and Lucius cut down like 20 Emperor's children attacking them, only to realize that Lucius tricked him and they killed loyalists who were trying to survive Isfahan 3. And as Lucius stabs him, you know, poor Solomon dies knowing he had killed his own brothers. Pretty sad end for Solomon. And the Legion is basically, the Legion that is left is swimming in like corruption. Any of the last like noble sons of it are like Vespasian, who is mentioning something. Basically, Fulgrim kills him. Again, like, they're all cut down. And
and it's like the remembrances are smearing poo on the walls. What's going on?
He gets like it's getting pretty nuts. Fulgrim and the Emperor's children then head off to Isfahan 5 to set up the defenses, like initially, because they are. That's why Fulgrim is not at Isfahan 3 initially. They'll be joined by the Sons of Horus, Swirl Eaters, and Death Guard, who have also cleansed their legions. And before the battle begins, most of the upper echelon of the Legion gathers in Fulgrim's grand theatre called La Fenice, where as we've seen earlier, Becwa Kinska, who we saw at the beginning of the episode and slightly throughout, she was in the temple as well. She plays this grand piece inspired by the Leia's music, and it starts to get weird. I mean, the veil between reality and the warp breaks, and straight up demons enter within. And is when, you know, it basically reveals that, you know, it is all in dedication to she who thirsts, she being and he is Slanesh. So the Legion has been corrupted by Slanesh.
And the music is the catalyst for the first Noise Marine, Marius Virosian, when he's like, wow, this is amazing. And he picks up like an instrument and he's like, I should turn this into a gun. And you're like, wow, here's where the Noise Marines come from.
He is desperate to keep the they're desperate to keep the brain melting music going. And
it's like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. Get something to record this. I'm going to try and recreate it from like memory. It doesn't work. And then like they're kind of trapped in this, always trying to imitate that dirge that's played, but they can't quite get it right. And so they keep getting more and more obsessed. Although fun fact, apparently, like according to lore and for example, the most recent Lord of Excess book, the chillest of all Emperor's children are the Cacophony and the Noise Marines. Very normal to talk to, but then they get fighting and they're just crazy. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm just like a guy playing a band. Like that's what they're like.
But like it's like full on Slanesh corruption, like chaos itself just washes over the Legion and Fulgrim, and it's basically here where they kind of basically fully turn. And then Isfahan 5 begins. So we've seen Isstvan 3 in previous novels. This is where the warp galaxy, or the warp, is basically run rampant over many parts of the galaxy. Travel is pretty bad. The Horus Heresy has been declared by Horus at Isstvan 3, and the 4 legions, including Emperor's Children, are basically entrenched in a position where the remaining legions, which are the Iron Hands, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and then behind them in the second wave, which is Alpha Legion, Word Bearers, Night Lords, and Iron Warriors. The 7 legions are basically coming to root out 4 legions who have done a little purging, as they say. So they're not at full strength, but again, defensive position. And the battle is pretty brutal. It's one of the most brutal in all of Horus Heresy. And the Emperor's Children, their flank is fighting directly against the Iron Hands, and Fulgrim taunts Ferrus as basically the Salamanders and Raven Guard are supposed to be retreating, and supposedly the Iron Hands as well, to let the next wave come in.
But as soon as Ferrus sees Fulgrim, he's like, charge everyone forward, and then the other two are like, no, Ferrus, no.
Fulgrim is using the Forcebreaker hammer at this point as well, and Ferrus has reforged Fireblade. And although funny enough, in the artwork, there's like him holding a massive wrench in one of them, which is really bizarre.
Yeah.
He doesn't. It's not in anywhere in the novels. Hilarious. No. And Fulgrim was like, you might want to look behind you. And this is where we see the infamous, again, Isstvan 5 betrayal. The 4 legions in reserve, they turn on the Salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard, and it's basically just a kill box.
It's that scene in Star Wars Episode 3 where Ki-Adi-Mundi is charging, and then all the clone troopers aim their guns at him and shoot him down. It's like, that's the Iron Warriors, when they just, because they're the ones who get the most flack, where they're known as the betrayers of Isstvan, because they just drop in. They're like, right, get the heavy bolters, form a perimeter, make a kill zone, and then they start like, what the fuck? And then all the second wave legions just start butchering, and that's why it's called the massacre, because it's not a fight, it's a slaughter, because there's no chance that the loyalists are going to win. A few little nukes are thrown at them as well. Like, it's pretty. Oh yeah. Remember, we're talking about, like, there's probably there's over 1 million Astartes on the battlefield at this point here, so it's an enormous battle. And Ferrus is distraught, but he's like, I've only got one thing left I can do, which is, and he even says, like, even if I die, like, other people will rise up to stand against you, which is a good cutback. And then they both draw their weapons and they start to fight, and it's going pretty evenly. They're both doing pretty devastating strikes. Again, if it's Primarchs fighting, you have to remember, like, it's hard for normal people to follow with the naked eye, like Astartes fighting. Primarchs, it's just a blur. You can't see what's happening, and it sounds like a bell being rung every half second, but it's going pretty evenly. And then Ferrus slightly gets an advantage. Gets the upper hand,
slightly. And then Fulgrim's like, he's not losing, but he's like about to take like a pretty bad strike. And this is where he draws the layer blade, and then it starts to flood him with like unreal power. This pushes Ferrus back. He wasn't expecting that surge of strength, and therefore he knocks him off guard. There's a pretty horrible strike on Ferrus, which puts him to his knees. He's got the Fulgrim raises the blade above his head, and he can't do it. He can't do it. And this is where we realize, like, the corruption of Slaanesh is starting to wear off. And Fulgrim is like, oh my god, what the hell is happening? And then the blade just takes over, and the edge descends, and the jokes will therefore forever be born, where Ferrus Manus loses his head, and he is he's completely cleaved off of his torso. And how did you feel during this fight? Because obviously this happens, in terms of like novel series, a Primarch dying happens quite early on in the series.
Yeah, it's quite stark, because it's like, we don't get a Primarch death often. This is in the first 10th of the book series that this happens, and it is quite, I think is it Graham McNeil who wrote this?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Graham did a pretty good job of like establishing the relationship between Fulgrim and Ferrus, and you get a real sense of like their camaraderie. So it is quite sad. There's even an excerpt in one of the, I can't remember which book it is, but when news gets to the throne world that a Primarch has died and it's Ferrus Manus, there's like people are throwing themselves off buildings in despair, and there are riots going on in like the prisons of terror, and people are devastated. Like, oh, how did you feel? Imperium's mass. They're like, what? That can happen? A Primarch can die? What do you mean a Primarch can die? And it's like, even the one who is known as not as bad as Perturabo, but like a quite merciless like taskmaster who always expected 110% and didn't have much mercy or compassion. Even when he dies, the Imperium is just utterly devastated that a son of the Emperor has been killed by no less by one of his own other sons, and it fractures the Imperium down to its core with everything it believes.
Interesting, like when also Ferrus dies, it sort of shows that like some weird etheric power like bursts out of him, which maybe goes to show like Primarchs are more than just a superhuman frame. There's something else special to them. But it's a pretty devastating like death. And as like we said, like it happens early on in the series in terms of how many books there are in the end. But I don't think they obviously planned the series to be as long as that. But it's why a lot of people were like, man, he died off so early. But I think it is done well, and it's pretty horrific when Fulgrim, like the blade just like takes off all the corruption just to let him like suffer in it. And Fulgrim starts to realize everything that's been going on. He's like, oh my god, the blade is cursed. Like, oh my god, the voices. And he's like, Ferrus wasn't insulting me when he was making fun of my art before. He was actually trying to make me stay humble because I've been an arrogant bastard. And he's like, what have I done? I've killed, so many of my own sons and, the noble ones, and they did nothing wrong. And it's, it's all going into his head. The real Fulgrim is there again. And he is crying. He's like looking at his own sons and the massacre, and he's disgusted by what his own legion has become. And he's like, the blade's like, this is what you wanted. This is exactly what you wanted. But if you can't take it, I can help. And he's like, help. He's like, yeah,
I'll take the pain away.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll help you, man. So he's like, I'll give you oblivion. And Fulgrim, in his, the current state he's in, is like, yeah, anything but this. And so the demon inside the Leia blade possesses his body. And as Fulgrim realizes the mistake he's just made, he is heard screaming. And I think I'm under the impression like it's in like his soul eventually goes into like the warp in some sense. Well, like later on we'll see example of like where we think it is, which I think is like a painting, isn't it? Like we see his soul / eyes in a painting, although that's like a separate upcoming story part.
Yeah,
but this is
of Benjamin Fulgrim in the painting. Like, yeah.
But I assume it was like, there's always my head canon in some part, like his soul goes into like chaos realm or some part, and we next see a demon-possessed Fulgrim body tossing the severed head of Ferrus Manus right at the feet of Horus, who Mr. Horus is like trying not to feel like, even though he's like kind of accepted chaos as like, into his heart, as they say. He's not.
Still feels disgust.
Yeah, he's still like, he literally is like, oh god, that's my brother's head at my foot. Like, or what? He's trying not to show his like revulsion. Horus realizes like, that's not quite Fulgrim. But the demon is like, are you going to thank me for all the help I did? And the demon reveals like, Fulgrim was going to kill you unless I helped you, so you owe me. And Horus is like, he doesn't,
I don't know.
Yeah, so it could have gone very differently. Again, like there's no demon sword, there is no traitor Fulgrim. But as for now, Isfahan 5 is finishes with Horus doing like a big sort of not parade, but like a big sort of mass celebration. All the traitor Primarchs and other Astartes around him, like showing all the dead trophies of like their once friends, and they're now all plastered over ships and everything. And they're like, we managed to inflict huge damage on the Imperium, and now the galaxy will burn. And
from his perspective, it's like, 2 battles so far, 2 wins out of 2. We've just completely destroyed 3 legions of the Loyalists. That's like a third of all the Loyalist legions that will eventually be coming to combat us. We've assembled 8 out of the 9 traitor legions. we've still got loads of because we've ambushed the legions that we were fighting. We've still got loads of firepower left. We're all united in purpose. We have the benefactors of chaos. Yeah, done deal. We're going to win this easy. Look at that. We're on such a roll. We've only just started, and we're going to keep going. Not until we get to the throne world are we going to give up. And it's like, yeah, from his perspective, he is happy because it's pretty good start to the traitor war effort.
Yeah, and despite like what we saw in a previous episode, where like even though like Garrow had warned Dawn in like the Imperium, and they sent later, obviously, which was these legions, and you know what they call the Shattered Legions now of the Iron Hand, Raven Guard, and Salamanders, and plus the 4 that turned against them. So like even though like Garrow got that warning, it feels like a bit bittersweet from
and another thing is the Imperial Fists were supposed to be at Istvan 5 because Rogaldorn sent a third of his legion with Alexis Pollux, but then the warp trickery got them trapped at Fal, and they couldn't make it. So,
yeah, well, we're going to see that one. I think that'll be quite a while to get to that battle. Yeah, so that Dawn did do something for people who were wondering.
He gave it a good attempt, and then he got the report, and he was like, "What happened? Seriously? Oh, for God's sake!" And then like it gets even worse for the loyalists.
It's a pretty bad situation for the Imperium at this point. As we'll finish off by saying that most of the Imperium, remember, like most of the Imperium has only been conquered within 200 years. So many places are either not very happy to be in the Imperium, or never saw the Emperor or anything like that, or maybe were captured by legions that are now traitor to the Emperor. So the galaxy is truly divided in terms of some are like, our side with Horus because I don't want to get killed by Horus, our side with Horus because we like Horus, or we side with Horus because we hate the Emperor and the Imperium. So
or even just apathy. Some planets are like, I don't even know who the Emperor is. Never met the guy. He's in charge. Who said? It's like Monty Python. Like, I didn't vote for you. So they're just like, oh yeah, this guy's quite impressive. I'll join him, I guess. Yeah, he looks like capable. Cool.
Yeah, the galaxy will. The Emperor's children again are, they are devolved into the worst version of what is the pursuit of perfection, and they will make the galaxy burn. Andy, did you have any final thoughts or / review of this novel?
I think like a lot of people criticize how quick Fulgrim's conversion to chaos is, but I think considering that the mission statement was, you've got a book, it's called Fulgrim, you've got to try and establish the character, establish the legion, and get them to go doolally by the end. I think it does a pretty good job. I mean, that there is always the facet of warp shenanigans and chaos shenanigans kind of speed up the process, but otherwise, how would you really do it? So I quite like this book. I think it's again one of like the required classics you have to read because you can technically skip some Horus Heresy books because there's like a lot of anthologies and stuff that's like a bit fillerish, but this is definitely like one of the must reads. Even if you're not going to go through the whole series, give this one a read because it's got a nice mix of not only Astartes, it's got Xenos, it's got rank and file like the remembrances and stuff. Like it's got a nice variety of perspectives as well. And I really like it.
Yeah, I think obviously, as always, we are massively trying to summarize the events in this one because this one's quite a long Horus Heresy book. There's a lot of different sets and scenes and things that happen. But in terms of my thoughts on it, I would say I don't know if it's like my fave. Again, like it's very hard because having a favorite amongst the series is like there's often very good books out there. I would say this one is still a pretty good book. Again, for being so early on in the Horus Heresy series, it does a lot, which other ones like, oh, my voice went crack there, lovely. But as in other ones feel like not a lot happens, whereas a lot happens in this one. And again, like some of the scenes and the set pieces are very good as well in terms of like we went from like Coral Xenos fighting to like Eldar Worlds to Isfahan 5 to like
to
so
a
many
Primarch
different
duel. Like you don't see that often, not until like the very later books.
But I just feel bad. Like again, like is that thing of I think I often do prefer books that are more like what's like Eisenstein, where it's more smaller character set pieces I can follow. Whereas this one is a bit more of like we're jumping around between quite a few people. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I
There's
got
a lot
to
of
know.
spectacle.
Yeah, I don't feel like I got to know some of the bigger characters, like Solomon or Vespasian, as much as like I would have liked to, because obviously they don't make it, but still pretty good. And again, it sets up quite a lot, and we'll see a lot of the characters we've seen in this novel we will see returning in many various stuff, especially Fulgrim, obviously. And I do, again, a lot of people do complain about the MacGuffin thing of the sword, but I don't hate it. I don't think it's quite as good as some other characters' falls to chaos, but that is obviously hindsight. But as a series, though, the Leia blade thing is interesting in terms of like if there was a bit more scenes of like we saw it over time, again, like if they had more than one novel of it, it would make
and in comparison to like Horus's corruption, where he's stabbed by a chaos weapon that doesn't have an entity living in it, and it's more, the corruption of the infection wearies his body, and then Erebus intervenes of trying to weave Horus's soul to the realm of chaos itself to speed up the process. Whereas like having an actual sentient being in the sword means that there's like there's an element tampering with Fulgrim's corruption in a very intimate way. I think maybe they could have added like a bit more interactions with like the whispers in the lair blade, etc. But there's always in hindsight, there could have been more of this, could have been more of that. But yeah, I still think it's a viable way to do it. You got the chaos shenanigans, and there's an entity in the blade that's trying to corrupt his body so he can take over. So he's not going to be subtle about it in the same way as say the Erebus corruption. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think the only downside about this book really is that the characters that you like don't make it. So that's kind of the only thing, but that is the whole point, which is like the Horus Heresy. It costs so much, it kills so many of like the biggest and brightest. With that being said, I hope everyone did enjoy this episode. And I will say, going forward, we're not necessarily going to be going in Horus Heresy timeline in book order, but we're going to shake it up and be a bit more timeline order. I think we're going to try and do it so more things that are relevant to basically knowing some things before like the Horus Heresy starts, or big events that make sense, and you might need like the greater context for later in the series. So we're going to do a bit of jumping around. So basically we're going to try and shift the Horus Heresy book series around so it makes more sense.
Because to be fair, the Horus Heresy books go all over the place all the time, and you're like, where am I now? So hopefully we're going to be able to, unless it's one of these kind of background setting things up for things that happened before the heresy started or this, but we're going to try our best to space them out so it's like, okay, this is in as best of a chronological order as we can, and if we're going to divert, we'll let you know why or what, because some of the books they'll be like, oh, this is book number 7, it's set before book number 1. You go, huh, what? And it's confusing.
But we hope everyone enjoyed this episode. And again, me and Mr. Andy Remembrancer will be guiding you throughout the Horus Heresy series. If you don't plan on reading it, we've got you covered. Do like, subscribe, all that good stuff to our Lodgecast here. And we'll catch you guys all in the next one. Peace.
Bye.